Hi, this is Nishant from Simply Interiors. And I just thought that while we've been doing a lot of videos over the last 6 months or so, we have made a lot of videos particularly on kitchens. So right from what are kitchens, how do you do costing of kitchens, what are the different types of kitchens, and even to the extent of going and telling you how to design your own kitchen. So while all these videos separately are there, I just thought of making one where I club all these videos together. So they're more or less this, they're already available individually. So I just thought we'll just club all of them together. So in case you just want to have a crash course on kitchens, so you can just go through them one and one at once. So this video, I have just clubbed those videos together, and you can just go through them one at a time. In case you want to jump to any one particular topic, there are links right down, so you can just click on the link and you can jump to that particular part of the video as well. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you guys, take care.
Hi guys, this is Nishant from Simply Interiors. Unlike a few other days, I actually have the camera in my hand because this video will require me to move around a little bit. Please don't mind the shaking. Today we will be talking about modular kitchens. Now everybody feels that that's what a kitchen is, and a lot of queries that we get is people asking us for interiors, and they simply go ahead and say, I want interiors done for my house, which includes a modular kitchen. Most of these people have no idea what is a modular kitchen. So we just thought we will take some time out and discuss what exactly a modular kitchen means. Does it mean the finish? No, it doesn't. Does it mean the kind of material which is going inside? No, it doesn't. What does it mean? It just means that the kitchen is built in modules. So the kitchen that you see behind me, that's the kitchen that is built in modules in a factory, and we have installed it here. Now if you see that this kitchen right here, okay, it's made in PU finish. Okay, this is not your regular laminate or acrylic finish, this is PU finish. Even PU finishes, it is possible to make in modular form. Now how do you know that this is a modular kitchen? So if I actually open this door, okay, let me try and open another one. Yeah, okay, so I'll open this door, these two doors here, okay, and what you see here is that this unit is a box, okay, and you can make it out from the bottom. Okay, this unit is a box, so this is a separate box, this is a separate box. Okay, can you hear it? Yeah, so this is a separate box, this is a separate box, and all these boxes are actually attached to each other and to the wall here in the site. Now they are made in factory. So what I mean they are made in factory is that, so there is a boiling waterproof plywood inside. So the boiling waterproof plywood is, the laminate is stuck on the ply, then the edge bandings are clay pasted on that, then it is cut in the required ways, and then these pieces come here. They are pre-measured, pre-done up. They just come here and they're screwed together here. That's it. Nothing else happens in the site. That's a modular kitchen. So tomorrow, the advantage of a modular kitchen is obviously tomorrow if I have to remove this, okay, I just have to remove this box. I can you see those screws there, right up there, okay, I just have to remove this box and I can replace this box with another one. I can also remove this box and take it elsewhere and fix it anywhere I want. It has nothing to do with the finish. Like you see, this is PU finish, polyurethane finish, which we'll be talking about in another video, but it has nothing to do with the finishes. Similarly, it has nothing to do with the kind of hardware which goes inside. Okay, so you can have whatever hardware you want in a modular kitchen as well. You can just simply talk about the hardware, you can say what kind of hardware you want, and the designer will make sure that you get that. If possible, of course, they will tell you if it is possible or not also. So that is it. There is nothing else in a modular kitchen. Now one advantage I have told you, that it is easy to remove. Another advantage obviously is that it is easy to clean. It takes lesser time for installation. So if you have the modules which are pre-made and it is coming on the site and then getting installed, obviously it will take lesser time for installation. If on the other hand you are building everything on the site, or it is not really modular in nature, it will still require equal amount of work to be done on site and it may take a little longer time. But that really, I mean, that's should not ideally be the reason why you go for a modular kitchen, because time taken now, you know, that extra 1 week or 10 days taken now could actually impact your entire house for the rest of the time you're living there, which could be a few years. So that should not be a consideration in my opinion. As long as finishes are concerned, as I told you, PU is probably the most difficult finish to do on any place, and this has been done by ICA. So finishes are not the reason why a modular kitchen is selected. A disadvantage in a modular kitchen, so like you saw this one, so there is an extra ply in between, right? So if the kitchen was built on the site, we will put only one ply and both the doors will be supported on that one ply. You don't need to. Now obviously that becomes a disadvantage for a modular kitchen because that much space is being wasted. Another disadvantage in a modular kitchen comes in because these modules, these boxes, like you know, these boxes are basically being pre-built and got here. So the angles are all 90 degrees, right? Now if this wall is not 90 degrees, then I'll have a problem. So what we normally do is, while taking the measurements themselves, there will be a little bit of margin which will be kept. So like I can't really show you a margin here right now. So there will be a little bit of margin which will be kept, and that much space. So let me show you here. Yeah, let me show you here. So this, for example, you see this space, right? So this space is automatically considered as wasted because this will have to be a dummy, right? Now if that is the case, then obviously what do you do? Now that is a small disadvantage that a modular kitchen has. So if space is a constraint, try to not go for a modular kitchen. If space is not a constraint, time is a constraint, go for a modular kitchen. But please talk to your vendors whether they can actually do the modular kitchen or they're just saying that a modular kitchen is being done. Because if a carpenter is coming over and doing the work on the site, he's not making a modular kitchen for you. He's definitely making a kitchen and saying that it's a modular kitchen. Keep those things in mind when deciding what kind of kitchen you want to go for. Thank you guys. This is Nishant signing off. Take care. Hi guys, this is Nishant from Simply Interiors. We're here with another episode from the kitchen series, and in this episode we will be talking about something which is the first thing probably that you guys look at when you are, you know, taking quotations from various vendors, various contractors for your kitchen work. This is how to calculate the cost of a kitchen. Okay. Now in this episode we will be talking about the various aspects of a kitchen. What are the different things which you have to keep in mind? These individually will be taken up probably in different episodes, but we'll be talking about the different things which are taken in mind. What is it that is considered when the costing is done for a kitchen, and how usually a contractor is, you know, sending you the quotation when they're doing that. How usually are they keeping all these things into a single quotation? So to start with, the first thing we'll be talking about is the different material that goes into a kitchen. So now I have this kitchen behind me. So I'll be talking about the same thing here. Okay, so if I'll take this. Okay, this is a typical top unit. There is a bottom part also, the typical top unit. So I'll be considering this part to showcase what is there in a kitchen. Okay, so the first thing is the framework inside. Okay, now whether it's a modular kitchen or a kitchen which is done on site or anything. Okay, so this framework will always be there. This can be made in plywood. This can be made in MDF or particle board. This current one is made in ply. Okay, what we have used is IS 710 boiling waterproof gurjan ply here. Depends on what kind of quotation you're getting. This is probably the most expensive plywood you can get, which is a boiling waterproof gurjan. You can get marine ply or BWR, which is a little cheaper. You can also get plywood with neither BWR or BWP, which is even further cheaper. Then you have HDF, which is a high density fiber, which is basically denser than MDF, which is medium density fiber. Those can also be used. A lot of modular people also use particle board, okay, pre-laminated. Be careful of that, should not be used. Now the framework is supposed to be strong. Okay, it should be strong enough to be able to handle all the stuff that you're going to keep inside. Okay, and for that reason ideally it should be ply. Now this is the first part, the first raw material which goes in is the ply. On top of that, this white color that you see is not actually ply, that is laminate. Okay, so the inside we normally use 0.8 or 0.7 mm laminates. These could be white or it could be other colors as well. A lot of people also do paint inside. Please avoid that because paint is only there temporarily. Laminates are waterproof. Okay, so 0.8 mm laminate. Then the other thing which is there is these shelves, again made of the same kind, plywood plus laminate. The edges have edge banding. So internally these edges are a thinner edge banding which is in PVC. Okay, a lot of carpenters do put the same laminate here as well. There are certain disadvantages to that which we will be discussing in a section on laminates which is separate. Then this PVC edge banding is the third thing. The hardware, okay, this is a hinge. The drawers will have channels on the sides. So this is the hardware which is very important. Okay, so this one is Hettich. Some local companies come, lot of different companies come, Hafele comes, there are a lot of different brands which are available. Hettich is a German brand which we normally use. Okay, so the hardware cost will be separate. Now the handles, obviously. Okay, so this handle, then this is the shutter. Okay, so now this shutter has been made in PU, polyurethane. So we don't have edge banding, this is all painted, but the shutter cost will also include whatever is the inside material. So for PU we use HDF or HDHMR, otherwise we use plywood here as well. There will be laminate inside and polish or laminate outside with 2 mm edge banding. In case this is laminate, this will have 2 mm edge banding on the side. So all that cost has to be considered as well. So this is the basic woodwork raw material cost which has to be considered. The other things which have to be considered are the various hardware which is going in. So a lot of hardware fittings, we will probably take you to one of the hardware showrooms and discuss those. It's a separate episode altogether. So a lot of hardware fittings. Ask your contractor to give, or your designer to give you a cost which includes hardware separately, and it is not part of the entire quotation, because that is a nice way to bloat up the quote. We will have no idea how much is the cost of the hardware going inside it. The hardware, by hardware what I mean is you might have some magic corners, you might have some pantry units, you might have baskets, you might have tandem boxes, you might have all those things. Those are different aspects, and please ask your contractor to give you separate cost. What we will be considering in this video is typically the cost of the woodwork, which I have already told you what all is included in that. Now the most common way in which you will probably get a quotation is in square feet. Okay. Now if there is somebody who is telling you this is what all I'll do and this is the bottom line, okay, 2 lakh rupees, 3 lakh rupees, whatever, some X amount, please tell them to give you a breakup. Okay, at least ask for square feet. Now what does square feet mean? Okay, so how do I measure square feet of a kitchen? So square feet, taking this example again, square feet means the height multiplied by the width. Okay, so I just take width from one end to the other, okay, for all the top areas, for all the bottom areas separately, multiply them with the height of the individual units. That is how square feet is calculated. So let's say this one is 1 feet, let's say, okay, this is 2 feet. So 2 feet multiplied by 1 feet is 2 square feet is the cost, is the area of this cabinet. Next, how do we come up on the pricing? The square feet rate is what I am talking about. The square feet rate is calculated keeping all the raw material in mind, the plywood inside, the laminate, the Fevicol, the hardware, the fittings here, the door, the handle, again the polish in this case, or laminate again, edge banding, everything. That is the cost of the raw material. Some considerations have to be taken in terms of wastage, because some might be wasted. There is a lot of chance that a lot of Fevicol might be wasted, there will be edge banding which will be wasted, etc. So those things have to be kept. That is the first aspect, the raw material. The second aspect is the labor cost, obviously. So because all this has to be taken together and somebody has to work on it. The labor cost could also include the cost of a factory in case there is some factory involved. In case the work is happening on site, then the cost of labor on site. Depending on which city you are from, the labor cost could be very different. Okay, so that is the second aspect to be taken into consideration. Third aspect is the miscellaneous expenses like transportation. Material has to be transported, GST has to be paid, So those are the third aspects. The fourth aspect is obviously the profit margin of the guy. Now we usually charge around 20-25%, 20% typically, okay, but the same thing can be done with a 40% profit margin or a 50% or a 10% as well. So the third aspect which you have to consider is the profit margin. Okay. Now once you've taken all these things into account, what a contractor usually does is he doesn't give you a breakup. It's very difficult actually to give a breakup, okay, because there will be wastage. I might be using ply here and ply here, so I will not know how much ply and all those things. So different aspects will be there. So that breakup will not be given, but at least a square feet rate has to be there. Now the square feet rate includes all the aspects which I told you about, and so you just take the square feet, multiply by that square feet rate, and you will have the cost of your kitchen. Okay, without the hardware. Please keep the hardware, the accessories, the fittings and all separate. So this is how you calculate the cost of a kitchen woodwork. I hope this helped you guys. Please, in case you have any queries regarding this, just feel free to comment at the bottom. In case you have any feedback to give, please feel free to comment at the bottom. We try to answer as many questions as possible. We would also like your inputs on any other videos which we can take. Again, please feel free to get in touch. We are available at www.simplyinteriors.in in case you have any requirements for your interior. Please take care. Have a good day. Thank you for watching. Bye bye. Hi guys, this is Nishant from Simply Interiors and you're watching our series on kitchens. Today we will be talking about a concept which is a theoretical concept about kitchen work triangles. A lot of people keep coming over and discussing how to optimize, how to make sure that your kitchen is optimized based on the actual work that is going to happen, not on the looks, not entirely on the looks, but on actual work that is going to happen. After all, kitchen is where you spend most of your time, and kitchen is where the people who are staying inside the house lose most of their energy. Now obviously when you're designing a kitchen, when you're making a kitchen, you should make sure that this energy is saved to as much as possible. For that reason, there is a concept, a simple concept, an old concept called kitchen work triangle. Now what is a work triangle? A triangle by definition is anything which has 3 sides and 3 vertices. A kitchen work triangle basically has imaginary lines drawn through 3 vertices. Each of this is denoted, one by the sink, one by the stove, and third one by the refrigerator. This is a concept which came up sometime before the World War II and all. So it's an old concept, but to some extent it still matters because these are the 3 areas between which most of the time when we are cooking is actually spent. So we'll take vegetables out from the refrigerator, take them to the sink, wash them up, then take them to a work counter which is next to the stove obviously, and then start peeling and chopping them, and so on and so forth. So this cycle keeps continuing and keeps going on, and it's better to optimize this distance. Another reason why these 3 points have been taken is that they can actually not be next to each other. You cannot have the stove next to the sink because the water will splash onto the fire. You cannot have the stove next to the refrigerator because, well, one is cold, one is hot. Similarly, you cannot have a sink next to the refrigerator because again the water is an issue. So a kitchen work triangle actually tells you about the optimum distance between these 3 to be kept, and that according to this theory is between 4 feet and 9 feet. So these 3 should not be less than 4 feet to each other and should not be more than 9 feet away from each other. This is to optimize the space that is given. Of course, there have to be certain issues. If the kitchen is small, if the kitchen is a single wall kitchen, obviously everything is a straight line, so you don't really have a work triangle. If a kitchen is very big, if there are more than 1 people going to cook in the kitchen, then obviously you will have to make some adjustments, and so on and so forth. But the basic theory of a kitchen work triangle is that the distance between any 2 of these 3 vertices should not be less than 4 feet and should not be more than 9 feet. A few other points are there. So the one point is that the total distance between these 3 should be between 13 and 26 feet. It should not be less than 13, more than 26. This is to optimize, of course, again, your traveling time. The another thing which is there is, now you may actually calculate like, yeah, okay, fine, the distance between my stove and my refrigerator is 6 feet, but there is something in between. So that should not be there. There should be a clear line of sight between these two, and preferably there should be a clear way of going from straight line going from one to the other. Another point which is very important is that these lines, which are these imaginary lines of the triangle, should not actually intersect with a path which goes through or away from the kitchen, you know, where a lot of people might be walking in, walking out. So let's say from the main door, from the living room, you have to go to, let's say, the dining room, okay, and you have kitchen somewhere placed somewhere in between. So obviously you don't want this work triangle to lie in such a way that people going from the living to the dining will actually have to pass through this, because what will happen is eventually the cook or the person who is cooking will keep banging into these people, and vice versa. So these are certain things which you have to keep in mind. This is basically what kitchen work triangle or the golden triangle talks about. Now, one thing which is very important is this really relevant in today's world? How relevant is it? Because see, this is a concept which developed before the Second World War. The things have evolved. Things have evolved to the extent that now cooking is not really just done on a stove. It can be done in an oven. A rice cooker is there. You have a grill. You have 2 or 3 different types of ovens usually. So a lot of things which have developed. Similarly, a lot of houses have more than one refrigerator as well. They have a separate pantry. They have a separate sink. So one sink is there for keeping the utensils, another one is there just for cleaning the vegetables, and so on and so forth. So a lot of things have changed. There are dishwashers which have come in. There are numerous other electrical appliances which have come in. The entire way of cooking, the entire things which are being cooked have completely changed over the years. So is this really relevant? Now, the point here is that we are not really force fitting the kitchen work triangle on anybody, and any designer should not be doing that. No force fitting is required, but the point is to keep this concept in mind when you are actually designing your kitchen. Of course, for some people it may be more relevant to have an oven instead of a stove on one of the vertices and decide according to that. For some people it may also be more relevant to, you know, have a couple of refrigerators and then accordingly see what works and what doesn't. For some people there may be a cook coming from outside and doing the cooking for them, and they may also be simultaneously doing some cooking. For some people there may be 2 or 3 people from the same household who may be cooking. Based on the kind of requirements that you have to decide where things have to be placed. The designer has to help you to do that, and for that, keeping this concept of kitchen work triangle in mind helps, and it can be useful. That's the only reason why this theory is still being studied and still being implemented in a lot of places. I hope this helps, guys. Take care. We'll be back with another episode on the kitchen series. Take care. This is Nishant signing off from Simply Interiors. Bye bye. So the first kitchen that we're going to talk about today is a one wall kitchen. So a one wall kitchen typically means that the kitchen is all laid out on a single wall. Okay, it's not an L shape like the one that you see behind me. It's a single wall kitchen where all the appliances, the counters and everything is laid out across one single wall. Now the typical reason why this kitchen will be present is that the area is very small, the house is small, or it could be a single room, a studio flat or something like that. In that case, it makes a lot of sense to have a one wall kitchen. It's a small kitchen and it works pretty well for such areas. Usually for a small family, because the kind of storage that will be present in a single wall kitchen will not be much. But the advantage of the one wall kitchen is that it will be on the side, on a wall, so you don't really have to worry about coming in the way, and all those things will not be a problem. Work triangle maintenance. What is a work triangle is something we will be discussing in another video. But work triangle, typically in a single wall kitchen, everything is on the same wall. So there is not much of a work triangle, just that since the kitchen is small, everything will anyway be efficiently placed around. There are no corners to worry about. Storage is a little lesser, but for a small place, for 1 or 2 people staying in the house or something like that, it makes a lot of sense to have a single wall kitchen in the house. Okay, the second kitchen that we're going to talk about today is the L-shaped kitchen. Now, L-shaped kitchen is typically a kitchen something like what is behind me here right now. It is in an L shape, all the cabinets, all the appliances and everything else is arranged in a manner such that it is against two adjacent walls. The biggest advantage of this kitchen is the openness. Okay, it gives you a feeling that the entire house is open. Okay, the kitchen is open, it is facing the dining area, and that is a major advantage. For modern kitchens, it really comes out really well. Another advantage that this gives is, in case there is a lot of people moving around in the house, it is easy for people to move around without having to really worry about anything else, because, well, the kitchen is on the side, it's in a corner basically. Now, an L-shaped kitchen doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, on both the sides are walls. An L-shaped kitchen could also mean that you have a single wall kitchen with something like a coffee counter or something coming in this side, so that you have open space on that side as well. So that is also called an L-shaped kitchen. Now, so in that case, obviously you can have somebody sitting on the opposite side and chatting with you while you're cooking, and all those things are possible. Now, the major disadvantage of this kitchen is that in case you have a cook or somebody who's coming over, you know, somebody from outside who's cooking for you, in that case, this will give them a feeling of, you know, you might not feel the same privacy which may come otherwise in a closed kitchen. An advantage here, of course, is that the work triangle is very efficient, because everything is against this. Usually you will have this the sink on one corner and the refrigerator on the other corner. In an L-shaped kitchen, unless the kitchen is too big, in an L-shaped kitchen it is easy to access all those things with the stoves coming somewhere in between. So the work triangle becomes very easy to manage. The efficiency is good for one cook. Okay, if it's more than one cook, then it may not be as good as that. There is one corner to take care of, so that is something which you will have to manage. Otherwise, the space provided, the storage space and all, is very decent in an L-shaped kitchen for a medium sized family. Typically 4 people, 5 people in a family, it is a very decent kitchen to have, and you should actually consider this as an option. The third kitchen that we are talking about today is the galley kitchen or a parallel kitchen, where the cabinets are arranged against two opposite walls. The cabinets, the appliances and all are arranged against two opposite walls. The major advantage of this kitchen is the space it provides, guys. There's just too much space which it gives, because you have, like, you know, cabinets on both the sides, or cabinets on one side and an island on the other, something like that. So that the advantage of this kitchen is the space that you get. In addition to that, you have no corners to worry about. Okay, because these are basically just two cabinets straight going like this. You have no corners to worry about, which not only reduces the amount of tension that you have in how to deal with the corner, but also reduces your cost to some extent, because the corners can be an additional cost in most of the cases. The disadvantage of a parallel kitchen is the space it takes. So one is, of course, it will have to be in a corner. It cannot be on the side, it cannot be in the center. It will not give that openness, but that depends on the kind of layout that you have in the kitchen also. One disadvantage, of course, is that it has to be in a side. If it is somewhere in the center, then the person who is cooking will obviously be disturbed by people who are moving around in the house. Now that can become a bit of a disadvantage in case of a parallel kitchen. Another disadvantage for a parallel kitchen is that if the kitchen is too big, work triangle management can become a little difficult. So just imagine having the sink in one corner and having the refrigerator in the other in a parallel kitchen on the opposite sides. It can become a little difficult to manage between the two. That could become a disadvantage. But if you have a big family, a family of, let's say, more than 4 or 5 people, or you have usually there are more than one people who are cooking inside the house, this can actually be a very good advantage, because both 2 or 3 people can independently do their cooking without having to trouble each other a lot. In addition, if it is a big family, of course, the storage space required and everything else will be much more, which again is something which a parallel kitchen provides for you. So you can consider a parallel kitchen in those areas. The next type of kitchen that we are going to talk about is the U-shaped kitchen. A U-shaped kitchen is basically, obviously, as the name suggests, the cabinets are arranged in a U shape. Now, this kitchen has certain major advantages. Okay, one major advantage just like a parallel kitchen, but with an added space. It is providing you with a lot of space. It provides you with as much space as you probably need. Wherever we have done a U-shaped kitchen, space was never a concern when we were designing the place. Because of the same reason, because of the shape, the major disadvantage in this kitchen is it cannot be built inside a small area. Now just imagine you have a kitchen space which is like 8 feet wide and you want to make a U shape in that. You will hardly get any space in between to walk around, and if you do get space to walk around, it will be so little that if somebody else, even one more person, comes inside, it will feel like a traffic jam inside the kitchen, which you obviously do not want. Now another disadvantage, because of the size of the house, the size of the kitchen, another disadvantage which can come from a U-shaped kitchen is the work triangle. It has to be really managed well, so that you feel that you're not getting exhausted at the end of the day while cooking only. So that is another disadvantage. But yeah, if you have a big family, if you have the space, U-shaped kitchen can actually give you everything you need. So you can go for that in case the family is big, which in a few cases it is, and in case you are looking for storage space, which is there. But typically anything less than, any side of the house is less than 10 feet, of the kitchen is less than 10 feet, U-shaped kitchen doesn't make sense. So please keep that in mind while designing a U-shaped kitchen. So the next kitchen that we are going to talk about today is the island kitchen. So island, as the name suggests, is a kitchen which has a cabinet right in between. It has a space for working right in between, which is open from all the sides. It is not touching any wall, it is not touching anything else. Now in some island kitchens you also have a sink or a stove in between on the island. In some island kitchens you don't have. Now in the cases where you have a sink on the island, obviously you need the required plumbing points for that. In case you have a stove on the island, you need some sort of ventilation for the same. So apart from that, this is basically a typical island kitchen where you have a cabinet right in the middle. This works really well where you have an open kitchen layout, but you don't have enough space inside the kitchen. So let's say it's just an L shape, or a just a single wall kitchen or something where you don't have enough space to keep your stuff. You get that additional space right in the middle. It can have storage underneath and it can have a work counter on top. Another advantage, or another place where you can use this kind of a layout, is a place where you don't want to have a separate dining area. Okay, the family kind of sits around that island. There are 3 people, 4 people sitting around the island having a chit chat with each other while having their meals. Okay, this is a more modern outlook where you don't, you're not worried about the television being somewhere else and all that stuff. So this is another advantage where it gives more family time to everybody. A disadvantage in this case is that it requires a much bigger space compared to a normal typical 2 BHK or a 3 BHK kitchen space. So for example, this space, so I have like around 10 feet by around 8 feet of kitchen space. I cannot have a work triangle. I cannot have an island. It's just not possible. Another disadvantage which can come with an island is to manage the work triangle. So if I have to, let's say, walk from this corner to that corner and I have something coming in between, it can become a little difficult. So that becomes a little bit of a disadvantage. But apart from that, an island is a very modern thing and it can basically become the focal point of your entire house as well for people who are coming from outside. If you have friends over, they're just sitting there, something is being cooked or you're having a couple of drinks together, all those things can actually happen around that island. So the last kitchen that we are going to talk about is the G-shaped kitchen. We have discussed a one wall kitchen, we have discussed 2 wall kitchens, both against adjacent walls or parallel walls. We have discussed 3 kitchens with 3 different walls. A G-shaped kitchen is basically a mix of a U shape which is on 3 different sides as well as a island. Now in G shape, there are cabinets across 3 walls, and across the 4th side of the kitchen there is something called it can either be, if it's a wall, it can be counters properly on the wall, or it can be a simple standalone unit which is something like an island but which is attached to a wall on one side. Now that's a typical G-shaped kitchen. A G-shaped kitchen has advantages and disadvantages of a U-shape as well as an island. So typically what happens in a G-shaped kitchen is you have of course a lot of storage space. You have more storage space than you can probably require if you have an average size family. If you have a large family, it makes a lot of sense to have a G-shape. It also gives you an advantage from the island perspective that you can have people sitting across the counter and cooking can happen while eating is happening, and also those kind of advantages are also present in a G-shape. It also gives you a typical open outlook, but the major disadvantage in a G-shape is it requires a huge space. The space required for a kitchen which has to be a G-shape is very big. In a small space there is hardly any space to walk around, and obviously if you're having a G-shape, which would probably mean that you have a family of 4, 5, 6 people, in that case there may be a lot of chances that you have more than one person who is cooking at one time. So that's a typical disadvantage. Otherwise a G-shaped kitchen can provide you with a lot of space, but there are a lot of corners to take care of. So you will have to look at options of what to do with the corners, whether you want to have a proper corner units or you just want to leave them out open, which will of course waste that much space. But I don't think space is going to be an issue here. So a work triangle will be, well, we'll have to design it properly, because a work triangle has to be efficient. In case of G-shape, because we assume that the kitchen is going to be large, you will have to make sure that your sink, your refrigerator, your stove are properly aligned to each other, so as to give you proper efficiency of working. That's about the G-shaped kitchens. Now this episode is a little important because it deals with what are the theories which you have to keep in mind when you're designing your kitchen. Now we obviously have a certain type of kitchen which is more or less given to us by the builder. You can't do anything about it. You may have an L shape, you may have a U shape, you may have whatever shapes, but there are certain aspects of a kitchen which you have to keep in mind when you are planning what to place where in a kitchen. Now why is this important? This is important because typically for at least one person in your household, a minimum of 2 hours are going to go every day in that kitchen. That's a minimum. Okay, you're making breakfast, lunch, dinner, maybe some snacks, tea in between, whatever, 2 to 3 hours. Now during that time, the one thing which is most important is that you should be able to carry out most of your activities while doing least amount of effort. Now obviously the effort of your hands is there. Now can you reduce that further by moving around less, or if you have to run to one place for salt and the other place for coriander, it will not make any sense. So can you reduce that? Now for this reason, in this episode we will be talking about 2 theoretical concepts which I will try to customize based on Indian ways of cooking, and I will try to customize so that you are able to understand. So I will not be taking too much into depth, but I will be talking about them a little. One is the work triangle and the second one is various areas of the kitchen. The first we will be talking about is the work triangle. Now a triangle, of course we understand, is a closed area with 3 sides to it. Now in a kitchen there are 3 areas which are considered important. The first area is your cooking and the working area next to it. That is the first area. The second area is the washing, okay, which is the wet area. The cooking is the hot area. The third area is your refrigerator. Okay, now that is a cold area, chill. The reason why these 3 are important is all these 3 are being used continuously by somebody who is doing cooking, but all these 3 cannot be one after the other. So you cannot have your sink right next to your stove. You cannot have your sink right next to your refrigerator. You cannot have your refrigerator right next to your stove. It is not possible. Now for that reason, these 3 have to be in such a way, the design of the kitchen should be such a way that these 3 on 3 different corners, the triangle edges are not too big and not too small. So they should not be like 2 feet small, they should not be like 8 to 10 feet big. Okay, so your work triangle should be such that these 3 fall in a triangular form and it's easy to go from any one of them to the other. Now why is it a triangle and why cannot they be in the straight line? Because let's assume you have your stove on one side and the refrigerator on the other with your your sink in the middle. From the stove to the refrigerator you have to go across the kitchen all the time. Okay, so it's always better to put your refrigerator somewhere else and make it into a triangle, so that you can move around between these three areas easily. Okay, so typically let's say you are cooking and you're cooking a vegetable. You go to the fridge, take out your vegetables, take them to the sink, wash them, then get them to a work area next to the stove, mise en place, cut them out and then put them on the stove. So your moving around will be far lesser. If you instead, in case you have to move around vertically across, horizontally across the kitchen, it will be very long. So that's why work triangle is the first concept. The second concept we'll be talking about is the storage, is basically the spaces in the kitchen that we consider when designing. So this is a design this is what we consider, my designers consider the same, and we also expect the others to think of these things when they are designing a kitchen. There are typically 5 areas of a kitchen which are considered. Okay, the first area is your cleaning area. Okay, this can be your sink, your wash area. The second is your cooking area. Okay, now this cooking area can be widely defined as not just your stove, but also your microwave and other areas where cooking is done. The third area is your work area. Okay, this is the area where you're working, the countertop where you're doing your work. So this could be a breakfast counter, this could be a counter next to your stove. All those areas will be taken as your work area. The fourth area is your storage space for consumables. What are consumables? Consumables are things which you are using to cook. So all your grocery, your atta, dal, chawal, whatever, all those things are your consumables which you are using for cooking purpose. These all are considered as the fourth area or your consumables. Fifth area is your non-consumables, your utensils. You have to store them, right? Now your utensils are not supposed to be stored next to your consumables. Your consumables should not be too close to your sink, okay, but they should be very close to the work area where you're working. Your work area should be placed somewhere near your stove cooking area, because in case you're making things like roti and all, you want to do both the things together. So your work area should be somewhere near your cooking area. Your work area should not be too close to your sink, hopefully, okay, because your water splash could come there. Your utensils should be stored somewhere near the sink, obviously, so that you can clean the utensils and store them, and in case there is any excess water, they can drain off. So these are certain concepts. These are the 5 areas which we typically keep in mind when we are designing a kitchen. You can also do that yourself. It's very easy, no rocket science in that. And depending on which area you're designing, which area is what, that area can have hardware and fittings based on that. So if you're having space for groceries, you can probably build a pantry there. If you're having a work area, you can probably fix something on the granite at the back so that you can keep your knives and all inside it. So depending on the kind of area you have and the kind of area that particular space in the kitchen is going to be used as, you can define your hardware fittings according to that. So this is another theoretical part which can be implemented while designing your own kitchen. I hope this helps.